Imagine this. It's 3:47 a.m. A pregnant woman loads her suitcase into a black SUV. She pauses, looks straight into the security camera, and whispers, "Shh." Inside the house, her millionaire husband sleeps peacefully beside his young mistress. His phone buzzes. Bank alert, bank alert, bank alert. By the time he wakes up, $271 million has vanished, along with his wife and their unborn child. How did she pull off the most brilliant financial revenge in modern history? What pushed a loyal FBI analyst to become the perfect thief? Stay till the end, because once you hear how she did it, you'll never look at love and loyalty the same way again. If you love stories of power, betrayal, and ultimate payback, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring you more wild, true-inspired tales like The Vanishing Act. The ultrasound gel was cold against Caroline Morrison's belly, but not as cold as the empty chair beside her. She stared at the ceiling tiles, counting them for the third time while Dr. Patel moved the wand across her skin. "There's that strong heartbeat," Dr. Patel said, her voice warm with practiced enthusiasm. "Sounds perfect. Is Dad joining us today?" Carolyn had prepared this answer weeks ago. "Business trip. Tokyo markets don't sleep." "Well, you tell him he's got a healthy baby boy in there, 7 months along, right on schedule. A boy." Carolyn felt the tears coming and blinked them back. This was supposed to be the happiest moment of her life. Instead, she felt utterly alone in a room designed for couples, surrounded by framed photos of smiling families who probably didn't have husbands who worked 80-hour weeks and came home smelling like perfume that wasn't theirs. She accepted the printed ultrasound photo with shaking hands. The baby's profile was clear, his tiny fist near his face. She traced the outline with her finger. "Everything looks wonderful, Caroline. See you in 2 weeks." The parking lot was half empty when she reached her Mercedes. She sat behind the wheel, staring at the ultrasound photo, trying to feel something other than this crushing loneliness. Her phone buzzed. "James, Tokyo deal running late, don't wait up. Love you both." Red heart emoji. Carolyn looked up from the screen and froze. Across the street, parked at the Greenwich Hotel, was James's Tesla. The custom license plate read, Hedge Fendi. There was no mistaking it. Her heart began to pound. "Tokyo." He said Tokyo. She checked the time. 3:45 in the afternoon. She'd been in the appointment for 40 minutes. How long had his car been there? The rational part of her brain offered explanations. Maybe the deal fell through. Maybe he came back early and wanted to surprise her. Maybe he was meeting a client at the hotel bar. But Caroline Morrison hadn't spent 12 years as an FBI financial crimes analyst by believing in coincidences. She waited. 30 minutes passed. An hour. Her parking meter expired. She fed it more quarters, her eyes never leaving the hotel entrance. At 5:17, the doors opened. James emerged first, laughing at something. He looked relaxed in a way Caroline hadn't seen in months. Behind him came a woman, blonde, late 20s, wearing a dress that probably cost more than Caroline's monthly car payment. James put his hand on the small of the woman's back. An intimate gesture, possessive. The woman leaned into him, said something that made him laugh again. Then he kissed her. Not a polite goodbye peck. A real kiss, the kind of kiss that told a story Caroline had been willfully ignoring for 18 months. She watched them separate, watched James walk to his Tesla, watched the blonde head down the street, hailing a cab. Caroline sat perfectly still. No tears, no screaming, no dramatic breakdown, just cold, crystal-clear calculation. She picked up her phone and scrolled through her contacts, past all the mommy friends and book club members, past her mother and sister, until she found a name she hadn't called in 4 years. Riley Carter. The phone rang 3 times. "Carter Investigations." "Riley, it's Caroline Morrison." Silence. Long enough that Caroline wondered if Riley would hang up. "I know who you are. I need your help." "That's interesting, because 4 years ago I needed yours." Carolyn closed her eyes. "I know. I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix a bullet wound, Carolyn. Sorry doesn't fix being abandoned by your partner." "You're right, but I'm asking anyway. Because in 10 weeks I'm bringing a baby into a war zone, and I need someone who still knows how to fight." Another pause. Caroline held her breath. What's the target? My husband, James Morrison, hedge fund CEO, worth $400 million. Riley whistled low. You never did think small. What's the mission? I want everything. His money, his reputation, his freedom. And I want to disappear before he knows what hit him. When can you come in? Now, I'll be there in 40 minutes. Carolyn hung up and started the car. In the passenger seat, the ultrasound photo stared up at her. She picked it up, studied her son's tiny profile again. It's going to be okay, she whispered. Mommy's going to make sure you're safe, I promise. She pulled out of the parking lot without looking back. Riley's office was exactly as Caroline remembered. Cluttered desk, cold coffee and stained mugs, surveillance photos pinned to a corkboard like a gallery of human weakness. Riley herself looked older, harder, her hair shorter than Caroline remembered. 4 years, Riley said, not getting up from her chair. Not even a Christmas card. I got married, left the bureau, started over. Started over? Riley's laugh was bitter. Is that what we're calling it? Because from where I sat in that Baltimore hospital, it looked like you chose a rich husband over the people who bled for you. Carolyn had known this conversation was coming. She'd rehearsed her defense 1,000 times. But standing in Riley's office, looking at the woman who'd taken a bullet meant for her, all her prepared words turned to ash. You're right, she said simply. I did, and I'm sorry. Riley's expression didn't change. Why should I help you? Caroline opened her coat, revealing her pregnant belly. Riley's eyes widened. For a moment, the hardness cracked, revealing something underneath. Concern. Old loyalty. The ghost of their partnership. Jesus, Caroline. His name is James Morrison, hedge fund CEO. I just watched him kiss another woman outside the Greenwich Hotel while I was getting an ultrasound, while he texted me that he was in Tokyo. Riley stood, walked to her coffee maker, poured 2 cups. She handed one to Caroline without asking if she wanted it. Tell me everything. Caroline did. The late nights, the unexplained absences, the perfume, the distance, the way James had stopped touching her belly, stopped asking about the baby, stopped pretending to care about anything except his phone. How long have you suspected? 6 months? Maybe longer. I kept telling myself I was paranoid. Hormonal. But today, Caroline's voice cracked. Today, I saw the truth. Riley pulled out a contract. Standard retainer, $5,000 up front. My rate is $200 an hour plus expenses. I need more than surveillance, Riley. What are you asking for? I need to know everything, every account, every asset, every vulnerability. And then I need to disappear with my son and enough money that James Morrison can never find us or control us again. Riley set down her coffee cup. That's not a PI job, Caroline. That's a heist. I know. You could go to prison. Only if I get caught. Riley studied her for a long moment. You're serious. Completely. This isn't you. The Caroline Morrison I knew followed every rule. She believed in the system. The Caroline Morrison you knew didn't have a baby to protect. Didn't have a husband planning to trap her in a marriage while he builds a second life with someone else. Caroline leaned forward. I spent 12 years hunting financial predators, Riley. I know how they think, I know how they hide money, and I know how to take it all away. Riley smiled for the first time. There's the agent I remember. She pulled out a fresh contract. Different terms, 10,000 retainer, and when this is over, we're even. No more debt between us. Deal. They shook hands. When do we start? Carolyn asked. We already did. Give me 1 week. I'll get you everything you need to know about your husband's other life. Caroline stood to leave, then paused at the door. Riley, thank you. Don't thank me yet. What you're planning, it's going to get ugly. It already is ugly. I'm just leveling the playing field. The Cedar Correctional Facility visiting room smelled like industrial cleaner and broken dreams. Carolyn sat at a scarred table, watching the door, her stomach churning with something that wasn't morning sickness. She hadn't seen her brother in 18 months. Not since the sentencing. Not since she'd sat in a federal courtroom and watched Tyler Morrison led away in handcuffs because she'd refused to lie for him. The door buzzed. Tyler walked in, thinner than she remembered, wearing orange that washed out his skin. His eyes found hers across the room, and something cold passed between them. He sat down, picked up the phone. Caroline did the same. If you're here to lecture me about choices and consequences, save it. I get that speech from the chaplain every Tuesday. I'm here to hire you. Tyler laughed, sharp and bitter. I'm in prison, Caroline, because you testified against me. I was FBI. I had no choice. You had a choice. You chose your career over your family. How'd that work out for you? Carolyn felt the words like a slap, but he wasn't wrong. She had chosen. She'd sat on that witness stand and told the truth about Tyler's offshore accounts, his client list, his methods. She'd helped send her own brother to federal prison. And for what? 2 years later, she'd quit the bureau anyway, married James, convinced herself she could have a normal life. I'm 7 months pregnant, she said quietly. James is cheating on me. I need to move $400 million without leaving a fingerprint. Can you help me or not? Tyler's expression shifted. 400 million, give or take. That's substantial. It's everything he has, everything he thinks makes him untouchable. Tyler leaned back, studying her. You want to do to your husband what I did for my clients. Hide assets, create shells, make money disappear. Yes. You sent me to prison for doing exactly that. I know, Carolyn's voice broke. And I'm asking you to do it anyway, because I'm bringing a baby into this world, and his father is building a second family with another woman. And I will not let my son grow up thinking his mother was too weak or too principled to protect him. Silence stretched between them. Tyler's jaw worked, emotions playing across his face. Anger, betrayal, and underneath it all, something that looked like grudging respect. How much are you paying? 5 million. Cash, untraceable, enough to disappear when you get out. I want 10. Done, but I need something else first. What? I need you to admit something, Carolyn said, that you could have helped me, that you chose not to. Tyler blinked. What? When I testified, you had information that could have helped me, about bureau corruption, about my supervisor taking kickbacks. You kept it quiet because you were angry, because you wanted me to suffer. His face darkened. That's not, yes it is, we both know it. You protected your clients, but you didn't protect me. So before we do this, before we become partners, I need to hear you say it. That you chose your revenge over your sister. The silence was deafening. Tyler's hands clenched around the phone. Carolyn watched him wrestle with it, watched him realize she was right. You're right, he finally said. I had evidence. I could have used it. I didn't. I wanted you to feel what I felt. Abandoned, betrayed. And now? Now we're even. Or we will be when you wire me $10 million. Carolyn smiled despite herself. When do we start? Right now. You need to get me a burner laptop. Smuggle it in through your lawyer. I'll send you a list of what I need. And Caroline? Yeah? This is going to be the most complicated financial crime either of us has ever committed. Your husband, if he's worth 400 million, he's got protections. Layers. We're not just stealing money, we're dismantling a fortress. Can you do it? Tyler's smile was sharp. I'm the best there is. That's why they locked me up. Give me 1 week to map his empire. Then we'll show your husband what happens when he underestimates a Morrison. 7 days later, Carolyn sat in her home office while Tyler's voice crackled through an encrypted video call on the smuggled laptop. Okay, here's what we're looking at, Tyler said. Your husband is very, very good at hiding money. 3 tiers of protection. Carolyn's screen filled with charts and diagrams. Walk me through it. Tier 1 is the accessible money, 91 million in joint accounts and brokerage. You have legal access as a joint account holder. This is the easy part. In Tier 2, 180 million in a Cayman Islands trust. This is the hard part. Biometric authentication, fingerprint and voice recognition. He has to personally authorize any movement. Can we fake it? Maybe. I've been working on something, but it's risky. What about Tier 3? 129 million locked in Morrison Capital Equity, his hedge fund. It's illiquid. We can't touch it without triggering SEC reviews and investor panic, so we ignore it. Caroline did the math. 271 million. That's what we can realistically move. In theory, but here's the problem. Move that much money, every alarm in the financial world goes off. Banks will call him. The SEC will launch investigations. He'll know within hours. So what do? Tyler grinned. We use a loophole. New York state law allows pregnant women to file for emergency spousal support without notifying their husband if there's evidence of financial dissipation. What's dissipation? Spending marital assets on an affair. And based on the surveillance Riley sent me, your husband has spent $437,000 on his mistress in the past year. Apartment, car, gifts. That's textbook dissipation. Caroline leaned forward. Keep going. You file Friday night. Courts are closed for the weekend. James doesn't get served until Monday morning. That gives you 72 hours. In that window, you liquidate everything and move it into an irrevocable trust for the baby. By the time James realizes what happened, the money's gone, and it's legal, technically. What's the timeline? Tyler pulled up a calendar. I need 2 more weeks to set up the shells in the Gibraltar Trust. Then we wait for the perfect opportunity. When's James's next trip? He's going to the Hamptons next weekend. Said it's a guy's retreat. Tyler snorted. Let me guess, he's taking the mistress. Riley's confirming it now. Perfect. He'll be distracted, overconfident. That's when we strike. Friday night, while he's sleeping next to her, you empty every account he has. Caroline felt something cold settle in her chest. Not fear, purpose. Let's do it. Riley's dossier landed on Caroline's desk with a thud. 200 pages of surveillance photos, financial records, and documented lies. Her name is Amber Sullivan, Riley said, opening the file. 28, former bottle service waitress at Club Velvet in Soho. That's where they met, 18 months ago. Caroline stared at a photo of Amber. Blonde, beautiful. Everything Caroline wasn't anymore, not with her swollen ankles and pregnancy waddle. When did it start? First documented contact was March 15th, 2 years ago. Riley flipped to a page. That's 3 days after your second miscarriage. The words hit like a physical blow. Caroline remembered that week. The hospital, the grief, coming home to an empty house because James had a critical meeting that couldn't be rescheduled. He'd been with her. He'd been starting his new life while Caroline was losing another baby. Show me everything, she whispered. Riley laid it out like evidence at trial. Photos of James and Amber at restaurants, hotels, weekend trips to Miami, Aspen, the Vineyard, credit card statements showing a $12,000 monthly allowance, a Mercedes G-Wagon titled to a Sullivan Holdings LLC, an apartment lease at 400 Soho signed by one of James's shell companies. He set her up, Caroline said, a whole separate life. There's more. Riley pulled out a medical record. I had to call in some favors for this, some illegal favors. Caroline read the document, then read it again. Amber Sullivan, OBGYN visit, 24 weeks pregnant. The room spun. Caroline gripped the desk. She's pregnant, she said numbly. 6 months pregnant. The timeline matches. Conceived around the same time as you. Caroline stood, walked to the window. Manhattan stretched below her, glittering and indifferent. Somewhere in that city, Amber Sullivan was carrying a James's child. Another son or daughter, another family. Caroline? Riley's voice was gentle. We can still walk away, file for divorce, take him for everything through the courts. No, sister, this is dangerous. What you're planning... He doesn't get to do this, Caroline interrupted, her voice ice. He doesn't get 2 families. He doesn't get to choose. I'm choosing for him, and I choose me and my baby. Not him, not her. Us. Riley watched her carefully. You're sure? Completely. Caroline turned back to the desk. What else do I need to know? James has a pattern. Every Friday he tells you he's working late. Really, he's going to Amber's apartment. Stays until about midnight. Then comes home. And this weekend? This weekend is different. He told Amber he's taking her to the Hamptons, the beach house, 3 days, just them. Caroline's mind raced. He told me he's going on a guy's retreat, golfing with his college friends. He lied again. Perfect. Caroline pulled out her phone, started typing. I'm going to tell him I'm visiting my mother in Connecticut this weekend. Give him permission to have his little vacation. While you do what? While I take everything, every account, every asset, every dollar he's ever earned, and when he wakes up Monday morning next to his mistress, he'll realize his perfect life disappeared while he slept. Riley smiled slowly. You know, I'm starting to remember why I liked working with you. Because I'm ruthless? Because you're smart. Ruthless is just a bonus. Riley pulled out a map of the Hamptons house. Tyler sent me the security specs. I can hack the cameras, watch them in real time. You'll know exactly when to strike. How long do we have? 1 week. Tyler's setting up the Gibraltar Trust. I'm arranging your extraction, and you need to play the perfect wife until Friday. Caroline thought about that. 1 more week of pretending. 1 more week of letting James kiss her goodbye, knowing he was thinking about someone else. 1 more week of smiling through the lies. She could do it. For her son, she could do anything. Tell Tyler I'm ready. Tell him to set it up. Riley nodded. One more thing. When this is over, where are you going? Somewhere James will never find me. Somewhere I can raise my son in peace. You've really thought this through. I've had 18 months to think about it. I just didn't know what I was thinking about until last Thursday. Caroline looked at Amber's photo again. She's just a kid. She probably doesn't even know he's married. Does that matter? No, but it's Bon. She thinks she won. She thinks she got the prize. Carolyn's smile was cold. She has no idea she's about to become the villain in his victim story, while I become invisible. The week crawled by. Carolyn played her role perfectly. She cooked James's favorite meals, asked about his day, let him rest his hand on her belly and feel the baby kick. Have you thought about names? James asked over dinner on Wednesday. I like Henry, after your grandfather. Henry Morrison. I like that. He smiled, and for a moment Caroline almost saw the man she'd fallen in love with. Before the lies, before Amber. He's going to have a great life, Carolyn, I promise. The irony was suffocating. James thought he was securing their son's future. Caroline was too, just not together. Thursday evening, she staged her departure. Mom's been asking about the baby, she said, loading a suitcase into her Mercedes. I thought I'd drive up to Connecticut for the weekend. Give her some quality grandmother time. James's relief was palpable. That's great, babe. You need the rest. The third trimester is brutal. What about you? Still doing the golf thing? Yeah, Hampton Pines. Should be a good weekend. The lies rolled off his tongue like water. I'll miss you, though. He kissed her. Caroline kissed him back, tasting betrayal and deceit. I'll miss you, too. Have fun with the guys. She drove 3 blocks, then circled back through the service entrance of their building. The doorman, Carlos, had been well paid to forget she'd ever returned. In her home office, she powered up her laptop and called Tyler. I'm in position, she said. Status? Gibraltar Trust is active. Shell companies are layered. Separation papers are drafted and ready to file. We're green across the board. Riley? En route to the Hamptons. I'll have eyes on the house by 1900 hours. Caroline checked her watch. 7 o'clock. In 30 minutes, James would pick up Amber. By 8, they'd be at the beach house. By 9, they'd be in bed, and Caroline would begin dismantling his empire. Let's review the plan one more time, she said. Tyler pulled up the timeline. 2000 hours. I filed the separation papers electronically. Courts are closed, so processing won't start until Monday. That's your green light. At 2015, you initiate Phase 1, joint checking, 4.2 million. Transfer to Morrison Family Trust. Then the brokerage account. Exactly 86.8 million. You'll liquidate in $5 million blocks, 8 minutes apart. Should take about 3 hours. And if alarms trigger? I'm monitoring bank systems. If anything flags, I'll see it before they call James. But honestly, the separation filing gives you legal cover. You're moving marital assets to protect your child. Technically legal. Caroline nodded. Phase 3 is the scary part. The Cayman Trust, yeah. That requires James's biometric data and voice authentication. I've been running AI models on his podcast recordings. The deepfake should fool their system. Should. And if it doesn't, then we abort Phase 3 and settle for 91 million, which is still a hell of a score. No, we go for everything. He has 271 million. I want it all. Tyler grinned. There's my sister. Okay, let's go steal your husband's fortune. At 7:30, Riley's voice crackled through Caroline's earpiece. They just arrived, James and Amber. She's wearing a red dress. They're laughing. He's carrying champagne. Caroline felt nothing. No jealousy, no pain, just cold focus. Good, let me know when they're in the bedroom. Copy that. Caroline stared at her laptop screen. Multiple windows open, bank logins ready, her hands were steady. After 12 years chasing financial criminals, she'd finally become one. The irony wasn't lost on her. At 7:52, Riley came back on the line. They're in the bedroom. James just opened the champagne. Caroline, he's laughing. He looks happy. Because he thinks he won. He thinks he has everything. Are you okay? I'm perfect. Stand by. At exactly 8 o'clock, Tyler initiated Phase 1. Separation papers filed, New York State Electronic Filing System, time stamped at 2000 hours. You're officially claiming spousal support due to financial dissipation. Courts will process Monday morning. Copy, beginning Phase 1. Carolyn logged into their joint Chase account. Balance, $4,200,347.62. Money they'd saved together, money from James's bonuses, his deals, his carefully cultivated wealth. She typed in the transfer details. Recipient, Morrison Family Trust, LLC. Amount, $4,000,000, Somnestis, Anaunin, $190,000. Memo, Emergency Child Support Funds pending legal determination. Her cursor hovered over the confirm button. This was it, the moment of no return. Once she hit that button, she was committing a crime, or saving herself. The line was blurry. She thought about James in the Hamptons, kissing Amber. She thought about her son, asleep in her womb, innocent and unaware that his parents' marriage was a lie. She hit confirm. The screen processed for 3 seconds that felt like hours. Transfer complete. Phase 1 done, she whispered. 4.19 million moved. Tyler whooped in her ear. No flags. Banks aren't alerting. You're clean. Move to Phase 2. Carolyn logged into their Merrill Lynch brokerage account. $86,800,000 in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. James's retirement. His security. His proof that he'd made it. About to become hers. Starting liquidation, she said. Tyler guided her through it. Apple position first. 6 million shares. Sell at market price. Do it now. Carolyn executed the trade. $5 million liquidated in seconds. Wait 8 minutes, then sell Microsoft. The minutes crawled. Carolyn watched Riley's surveillance feed. James and Amber were in bed, wine glasses on the nightstand. His phone sat face down, 3 feet away. Useless. Microsoft, 5 million. Go. Another trade executed. Another piece of James's fortress crumbling. They repeated the pattern. Tesla, Amazon, Google, Meta. Every blue chip stock James had carefully selected, every investment he'd bragged about at dinner parties, liquidated into cold cash. By 11:30, the brokerage account was empty, except for a small balance left to avoid total zero alerts. $86.8 million licking and sitting in the cash account, Tyler said, his voice tight with tension. Now comes the big wire. All of it. One transfer to Gibraltar. You ready? Caroline typed in the account details Tyler had prepared. Gibraltar International Trust. Beneficiary, Baby Morrison, unborn minor. Trustee, anonymous law firm. Amount, $86,800,000. Jesus, Caroline, once you hit that button, there's no taking it back. He'll hunt you for this. Let him hunt. He'll never find me. You're absolutely sure? Carolyn looked at the ultrasound photo taped to her desk, her son's profile, his tiny hand, the life she was fighting for. I'm sure. She hit confirm. The processing wheel spun and spun. Carolyn's heart hammered. What if the system rejected it? What if... Transfer complete. She let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Holy shit, Riley breathed. You just moved $91 million in under 4 hours. Caroline, you did it. We're not done. Phase 3. Tyler's voice was serious now. This is the big one, the Cayman Trust. 180 million. But Caroline, it requires biometric authentication. If the AI voice doesn't work, it'll work. Walk me through it. At 12:15 in the morning, Caroline sat in front of her laptop with a phone in her hand and her brother's voice in her ear, about to commit the most audacious financial fraud of her life. Okay, I've accessed James's iCloud backup, Tyler said. I'm extracting his fingerprint biometric data now. This is going to take about 5 minutes. Carolyn watched the progress bar crawl across her screen. On Riley's surveillance feed, James and Amber were asleep, tangled together in sheets that Caroline had picked out 3 years ago. She felt nothing. That scared her more than the crime she was committing. Extraction complete, Tyler announced. I've got his print. Now I'm spoofing it through a virtual mobile device that mimics his iPhone. The Cayman Bank's app should read it as legitimate. What about the voice? That's where it gets tricky. I've been training an AI model on James's podcast recordings. 47 episodes of Morrison on Markets. The AI can replicate his voice, his patterns, his verbal tics. But it's not perfect. If the bank's authentication system is sophisticated enough, it might detect the fake. What are our odds? Honestly, 60-40 in our favor. Maybe 70-30. But Carolyn, if it fails, I still have $91 million and a new identity waiting in Portugal. I'll survive. But I want all of it, Tyler. Every dollar he hid, every asset he protected. I want to leave him with nothing. Silence. Then Tyler said quietly, You sound like me when I was stealing from my clients. Is that a bad thing? I went to prison. Only because I testified against you. This time I'm the criminal, and I don't plan to get caught. Tyler laughed sharp and bitter. Okay then, let's make history. Calling the Cayman hotline now. Caroline's screen displayed the spoofed phone interface. The number dialed. It rang twice. Cayman First International Trust Services, how may I direct your call? The voice was human, British accent, professional. Caroline's hands started to sweat. Tyler triggered the AI. When James's voice came through the speakers, it was perfect, exact pitch, exact cadence. Even the slight rasp he got when he was tired. This is James Morrison. I need to access my trust account. Of course, Mr. Morrison, please verify your identity with the authentication phrase. Shit. Carolyn hadn't prepared for a phrase, but Tyler had. AI James spoke smoothly. The mountain and the sea remained constant. Carolyn had never heard that phrase in her life. Tyler must have pulled it from some recording she didn't know about. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Now please authenticate via your mobile device. A notification appeared on Carolyn's screen. The bank's app requesting biometric confirmation. Tyler's spoofed fingerprint data transmitted. Carolyn held her breath. 10 seconds, 20, 30. Authentication successful. How may I assist you this evening? Mr. Morrison. Carolyn nearly collapsed with relief. Tyler kept the AI running, voice steady and calm. I need to transfer the complete balance of trust account 4472B to a new beneficiary trust. Certainly. May I ask the reason for this transfer? Estate planning for my unborn child. My attorney advised consolidating assets before the birth. I understand. What is the receiving account? Tyler fed her the information. Caroline read it aloud through the AI voice. Gibraltar International Trust, account number 703988842, beneficiary, Morrison Henry James, unborn minor, born estimate November 2024. One moment, please. The hold music was excruciating, classical piano, meant to be soothing. Instead, every note felt like a countdown to disaster. What if they called James to confirm? What if the AI had a glitch? What if, Mr. Morrison, I have confirmation. Transfer amount is 180 million even. This will take approximately 48 hours to process fully. Is this correct? Yes. Please confirm with your security code. Fuck. Another thing Carolyn didn't have. But Tyler did. God knew how he'd gotten it, but numbers appeared on her screen. AI James recited 7 Alpha, Nisha November, 3 Bravo, 6. Another pause. Caroline's heart was going to explode. Confirmed, transfer initiated. You should see preliminary movement within 12 hours. Is there anything else I can help you with this evening? No, thank you. Have a pleasant evening, Mr. Morrison. The line went dead. Caroline sat frozen. Tyler was whooping in her ear. Riley was laughing, but Caroline just stared at the screen. Transfer initiated. $180 million. Caroline? Riley's voice cut through the noise. You did it. Holy shit, you actually did it. How much time until James could possibly know? Caroline asked. Banks are closed until Monday morning, Tyler said. Even if someone tried to contact him, it's the weekend. He won't check his accounts. He's on vacation with his mistress. He thinks he's untouchable. Caroline checked the time. 2:47 in the morning. On Riley's feed, James was still asleep, Amber's head on his chest, peaceful, ignorant. Total transfer amount? Caroline asked. Tyler pulled up the numbers. $271,190,000. Minus the $10 million I'm taking as payment, that leaves you with $261 million. And your son's trust is worth the full $271. Carolyn did the math. James started with $400 million. He'd lost over 2/3 of his net worth. Everything liquid, everything movable, everything he could access. All that remained was his illiquid hedge fund equity, which he couldn't touch without destroying his business. She'd gutted him. Phase 4, she said quietly. Extraction. Saturday morning arrived with the cruel normalcy of sunlight streaming through expensive curtains. James Morrison woke at 6:15, stretched his arms above his head, and reached for his phone with the casual confidence of a man who believed himself untouchable. No alerts, no messages. The screen was pristine, peaceful. Beside him, Amber Sullivan slept peacefully, her blonde hair splayed across the pillow like a magazine advertisement. The morning light caught the diamond bracelet on her wrist, a gift he'd given her 2 months ago, charged to a credit card Caroline never saw. James smiled. This was freedom. This was what life was supposed to feel like. He padded to the kitchen in bare feet, the cold marble floor a pleasant shock against his skin. The coffee maker gurgled to life. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Atlantic stretched endless and blue. His beach house, his mistress, his perfect weekend. Carolyn was in Connecticut with her mother, probably complaining about swollen ankles and back pain. Pregnancy had made her so needy, so exhausting. Always wanting to talk about feelings, about the future, about their relationship. With Amber, everything was simple, fun. She didn't ask complicated questions. She didn't demand emotional labor. She just enjoyed the ride. He poured 2 cups of coffee, carried them back to the bedroom. Amber was awake now, scrolling through her phone. Morning, beautiful, he said, handing her a cup. She looked up, smiled that smile that had first caught his attention at Club Velvet 18 months ago. Morning, what's the plan today? I was thinking beach walk, that Italian place you like for lunch. Maybe we drive into town, do some shopping. Sounds perfect. She sipped her coffee, then placed a hand on her 6-month pregnant belly. Baby's kicking already. I think she knows her daddy's here. James felt a complicated twist in his chest. Another baby, another family. The situation was getting messy, but he'd figure it out. He always did. Maybe he'd set Amber up with a better apartment after the baby came. Maybe he'd spend more time here in the Hamptons. Caroline would never have to know. He was in control. He had options. He was winning. 250 miles away, Caroline Morrison stood in her Tribeca loft with military precision, methodically erasing herself from James's life. The apartment felt different now. Empty, like a stage set after the play had ended. She moved through rooms she'd decorated, past furniture she'd chosen, touching nothing that mattered anymore. Riley arrived at 6:45, her expression grim. Last chance, Riley said quietly. Once you walk out that door, you can't come back. Not to this life. Not to being Caroline Morrison, you understand that? Caroline looked at her wedding ring still on her finger. 5 years ago, James had slipped it on in a ceremony that cost $300,000. She'd believed every word of his vows. She'd been so naive. She twisted the ring off. Set it on the bathroom counter. The band left a pale line on her finger like a scar. I understand, she said. Caroline Morrison is dead. She died the moment she realized her husband was building a second family while she carried his first child. Riley nodded. I transferred the $2 million to your account. Use it wisely. Get a lawyer when James comes hunting. Because he will hunt. Let him. I'll be a ghost. They stood in the foyer, 4 years of complicated history between them. Carolyn had abandoned Riley after Baltimore, had chosen James, chosen the promise of a normal life, chosen to forget the woman who'd taken a bullet for her. I'm sorry, Caroline said, for everything, for disappearing, for being a coward. You weren't a coward, you were tired. There's a difference. Riley pulled her into a careful hug. But this? What you did last night? That took guts. That took the Caroline Morrison I remember from the bureau. Or it took desperation. Maybe both. Riley stepped back. Your car's downstairs. Burner phone is in the glove box. Passport under Sarah Mitchell. Cash in the trunk. You're about to become a ghost, Carolyn. Make sure you stay one. Carolyn picked up her single suitcase. Everything she was taking fit in one bag. No designer clothes, no jewelry, no photos except the ultrasound image of her son. She was shedding her skin, leaving behind the expensive shell that James had built around her. On the bed, she left an envelope. Inside, a single note written in her careful handwriting. You wanted 2 families. Now you have none. The money's in a trust for our son. You'll never touch it, and you'll never find us. She walked to the door, paused, looked back one final time. The Tribeca loft, the life she'd built, the woman she'd been. All of it was ashes now. She walked out without looking back. The private airstrip in New Jersey was gray and industrial, nothing like the glossy private terminals James used. This was the kind of place where people paid cash and asked no questions. A Cessna Citation waited, engines already running. The pilot barely looked at her passport. Ms. Mitchell, we're fueled and ready. Montreal, correct? Correct. She climbed aboard. The cabin was small, utilitarian, no champagne, no leather seats, just functional transportation from one life to another. The jet lifted off at 8:15. Caroline watched New York shrink below her, the city where she'd fallen in love, gotten married, built a career, lost herself. From up here, it looked like a toy, insignificant, easy to leave behind. Her burner phone buzzed, a text from Riley. Still sleeping. Beach house quiet. You're clear. Carolyn deleted the message, then powered down the phone completely. From now on, she'd use it only for emergencies. No connections to her old life. No breadcrumbs for James to follow. The flight to Montreal took 90 minutes. She spent it with her hands on her belly, feeling Henry kick, talking to him silently. We're going to be okay. I promise. Your mother did something terrible to protect you, something she'll have to live with forever. But you'll be safe. You'll be loved. And you'll never know what your father really was. In Montreal, she transformed in an airport bathroom. Box dye turned her blonde hair dark brown. Glasses changed her face. Different clothes, different posture, different woman. Sarah Mitchell looked nothing like Caroline Morrison. The Air Canada flight to Lisbon departed at 2:15. She bought the ticket with cash at the counter, a last-minute traveler seeking Portuguese sun. The gate agent barely glanced at her passport. She slept most of the flight, exhausted from 36 hours without rest. When she woke, they were descending over the Portuguese coast. Red tile roofs climbed hills. White buildings gleamed in afternoon sun. The Atlantic sparkled blue and endless. Her new home. The immigration officer at Lisbon Airport stamped her passport without interest. Purpose of visit? Tourism. Maybe looking for a place to live. I'm pregnant. Thought the slower pace would be nice. Bem-vinda a Portugal. Welcome. He waved her through. Just like that, Caroline Morrison ceased to exist. Sarah Mitchell collected her bag and stepped into Portuguese sunshine, 7 months pregnant, carrying $261 million in untraceable accounts, and absolutely free. James Morrison had never felt so alive. Saturday unfolded like a dream he'd designed himself. He and Amber walked the beach at sunrise, her hand in his, her laughter bright as the gulls overhead. The sand was cool beneath their feet. The ocean whispered secrets. I love this, Amber said, squeezing his hand. Just us, no phones, no pressure, just being together. James felt a surge of affection. This was what he'd been missing with Caroline. Lightness, joy. A woman who appreciated him instead of analyzing him, questioning him, demanding he be someone he wasn't. Me too, he said, and meant it. In that moment, he meant it completely. They had lunch at Osteria Marini, the Italian place where they'd celebrated Amber's birthday last month. Fresh pasta, a bottle of wine, just one glass for her, the baby and all. The waitress knew them by name now. James liked that, liked having a place that was theirs. When are you going to tell Caroline, Amber asked over tiramisu? She'd asked before. She asked every few weeks, the question always there beneath the surface. Soon, James said, the lie smooth as aged scotch. After your baby comes. I want to time it right. Make sure everything's protected. Protected how? Legally, financially. Caroline was FBI. She knows how to dig. I need to make sure the divorce doesn't destroy me. Amber frowned. But you love me, right? You want us to be a real family? Of course I do. The truth was more complicated. James loved options. He loved control. Two families meant twice the leverage, twice the safety net. If Caroline got difficult, he had Amber. If Amber got needy, he had Caroline. He was hedging his bets the way he hedged his investments. Diversification. That's what smart men did. After lunch, they drove to Sag Harbor, wandered boutiques. James bought Amber a sundress, a pair of earrings, expensive sandals she didn't need. She beamed like a child at Christmas. Caroline never beamed like that anymore. Caroline just looked tired. Evening came soft and golden. They made love as the sun set, the bedroom awash in orange light. Amber fell asleep in his arms, her pregnant belly pressed against his side. James lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling something he rarely felt. Contentment. His phone sat on the nightstand, dark and silent. He didn't check it, didn't check his email, didn't think about work or markets or money. For once in his driven, competitive, exhausting life, James Morrison was simply present. It was the last peaceful moment he'd ever have. Sunday arrived even better than Saturday. They stayed in bed until noon, lazy and tangled. Brunch on the deck, French toast and fresh berries, mimosas for him, orange juice for her. The September air was perfect, neither too hot nor too cool. I could get used to this, Amber said, feet propped on the rails. It's just you and me, raising our baby here. The city's so loud, you know. I want our daughter to grow up with space, fresh air. James made a non-committal sound. He hadn't thought that far ahead, hadn't really planned beyond the immediate pleasure of having two separate worlds. At 3 o'clock, his phone rang. Carolyn. Hey, babe, he answered, stepping inside for privacy. How's Connecticut? Good, Mom's loving all the baby talk. She's already knitting booties. Caroline's voice sounded normal. Happy, even. How's the golf? Great, shot 82 yesterday. Not bad for being rusty. That's wonderful, honey. Listen, Mom wants me to stay an extra day. Is that okay? She's already planning a whole baby shopping trip tomorrow. Perfect. Another day with Amber. Of course, take your time. You need the rest. I love you. Love you too, babe. He hung up, returned to the deck. Amber was scrolling through baby names on her phone. Everything okay? Perfect. Caroline's staying in Connecticut another day. Amber smiled. So we get bonus time. Looks like it. The afternoon stretched lazy and warm. They napped, read, made dinner together, grilled salmon and roasted vegetables. James opened a bottle of expensive Burgundy, poured himself a generous glass. To us, Amber said, raising her orange juice. To us, James echoed. As the sun set over the Atlantic for the second time that weekend, James Morrison sat on his deck with his pregnant mistress and thought, this is what happiness feels like. He had no idea that while he sat there content and oblivious, his entire financial empire had been quietly dismantled, that his wife had committed the perfect crime, that his life, as he knew it, had ended 36 hours ago. He was living in the last moment before the bomb exploded, and he didn't even know it. Sunday night, they made love slowly, tenderly. Amber fell asleep first, her breathing deep and even. James lay beside her, one arm around her growing belly, and felt something close to peace. Tomorrow he'd return to the city, to Caroline and the pregnancy and the complicated dance of maintaining two lives. But tonight he had this. Simple, uncomplicated, perfect. He checked his phone one last time before sleep. No alerts, no emergencies, just the quiet hum of a life running smoothly. He set the phone back on the nightstand face down. He never saw the notifications starting to pile up. The bank alerts, the lawyer's urgent messages, the CFO's panicked calls. He slept the sleep of the innocent, wrapped around his mistress, while his entire world collapsed in digital silence. By the time he woke Monday morning, it would be too late. Caroline Morrison would be gone, and James Morrison would discover what it felt like to lose everything. Monday morning arrived like a bullet to the skull. James Morrison woke to his phone vibrating so violently it was dancing across the nightstand. The screen was ablaze with notifications, a cascade of red flags, urgent messages, missed calls stacking up like a digital avalanche. His first thought was market crash. His second thought was terrorism. His third thought, as he grabbed the phone and saw the actual messages, was, what the fuck? CFO Mitchell, call me now, emergency. Chase Bank, urgent account activity requiring verification. Lawyer Steinberg, James, do not talk to anyone until you call me. Cayman Trust, security breach, immediate attention required. 19 missed calls, 47 texts, 12 voicemails. James? Amber stirred beside him, voice thick with sleep. What's wrong? I don't know. His hands were shaking. He opened his Chase banking app, entered his password. The screen loaded. Joint checking account balance, $10,000. James blinked, refreshed. Same number. That was impossible. There should be over about $4 million in that account. He'd checked it Friday afternoon before leaving the city. 4.2 million, comfortable cushion for monthly expenses. He opened the brokerage app. Account balance, $127,043. Weinstein. His stomach dropped through the floor. There should be 86 million in that account. 86 million in carefully selected blue chip stocks. His safety net, his fuck you money, gone. No, he whispered. No, no, no. He called Chase, hands trembling so badly he could barely hold the phone. Mr. Morrison, thank you for calling back. The banker's voice was professionally neutral, which somehow made it worse. We need to verify some large transfers that occurred Friday evening between 2000 and 0200 hours. What transfers? I didn't authorize any transfers. Sir, according to our records, $4.19 million was transferred from your joint checking to Morrison Family Trust, LLC, at 20:07 hours. Then, between 2100 and 2330 hours, substantial liquidation occurred in your brokerage account. Multiple stock positions sold, approximately 86.8 million converted to cash. The room was spinning. James sat down hard on the bed. I was here in the Hamptons. I didn't do any of that. The transfers were executed using proper dual authorization from joint account holders. Additionally, we received legal documentation Friday evening showing a petition for legal separation and emergency spousal support filed by Mrs. Caroline Morrison. The words hit like a physical assault. Legal separation? When? Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. The filing cited financial dissipation and granted Mrs. Morrison emergency authority to protect marital assets pending custody determination of your unborn child. Friday at 8 p.m., James looked at Amber, still in his bed. Friday at 8 p.m., he'd been opening champagne, kissing her, celebrating their secret weekend. Caroline had known. She'd known exactly where he was, exactly what he was doing. And while he'd been here, feeling free and happy and in control, his wife had been systematically destroying him. Where did the money go? He asked, voice hollow. The brokerage funds were transferred to Gibraltar International Trust. Beneficiary listed as Morrison Henry James, unborn minor. The account is structured as an irrevocable trust. Without a court order proving fraud, the funds cannot be accessed by either parent. She put it in a trust for the baby. Yes, sir. James's phone was ringing again. His Cayman banker. With dread pooling in his gut like ice water, he answered, Mr. Morrison, we need to discuss the transfer request from early Saturday morning. What transfer? Sir, at approximately 0137 hours Saturday, you called our secure line and authorized the transfer of the complete balance of trust account 4472B to a Gibraltar trust, $180 million. I didn't call you. I was asleep. We have voice authentication and biometric confirmation, Mr. Morrison. The call lasted 9 minutes and 43 seconds. You provided your security phrase, fingerprint verification via mobile IC app, and your alphanumeric security code. James felt the blood draining from his face. That's impossible. Nevertheless, the transfer was authorized and executed. The funds are currently in transit to Gibraltar. Under the trust structure, they cannot be recalled without beneficiary consent. How much do I have left? The question came out as a whisper. In liquid assets? Approximately 1.8 million across various accounts that weren't accessed. Your Morrison Capital equity remains intact at approximately 35 million, but as you know, that's illiquid and cannot be accessed without board approval and vesting schedules. James did the math in his head. He'd woken up Friday morning worth $400 million. Now he was worth less than 40 million, and most of that was locked in his fund. Carolyn had taken $271 million in a single night. The doorbell rang, sharp and demanding. That'll be your process server, the Cayman banker said quietly. Your lawyer mentioned you'd be served this morning. Mr. Morrison, I'm sorry, truly. James stumbled to the door like a drunk man. Amber followed, wrapped in a sheet, eyes wide with growing panic. James, what's happening? He didn't answer, couldn't answer. The process server was young, professional, bored. James Robert Morrison? Yes. You've been served. He handed over a thick manila envelope, turned and left without another word. James opened it with numb fingers. Petition for legal separation, Caroline Morrison for all. James Morrison, New York Supreme Court. Inside were photos, dozens of them. James and Amber at restaurants, hotels, the beach, his apartment, 6 months of surveillance, time-stamped and cataloged. His hand on her back, kissing her, holding her pregnant belly. Credit card statements showing $437,000 spent on A. Sullivan. The Soho apartment lease, the Mercedes title, the jewelry receipts. Every transaction documented, highlighted, undeniable. And the final page, emergency transfer of marital assets to irrevocable trust for minor child Morrison, Henry James. Executed pursuant to NY Domestic Relations Law Section 236, subsection B. Assets transferred, $271,000, $190,000. Grounds, financial dissipation through maintenance of extramarital affair and secondary household. Filed Friday, 8 p.m. The exact moment he'd been toasting Amber with champagne. James looked up at Amber. She was staring at the photos, her face pale. You're married, she said flatly. This whole time, you're married, and she's pregnant too. Amber, you told me you were separated. You said the divorce was in progress. You said... Her voice broke. I'm 28 years old, James. I'm 6 months pregnant with your baby. And you played me. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Because it looks like you have a pregnant wife who just took everything you own while you were here fucking me. The words were like acid. James wanted to argue, to explain, to make her understand. But what was there to say? Carolyn had played him perfectly. She documented everything, waited for the perfect moment. Struck while he was distracted and arrogant and stupid, she checkmated him. You need to leave, he said quietly. What? Get your things. Call a car. Go back to the city. Don't contact me. James, I'm pregnant with your child. I know, the words exploded out of him. I know, and right now I have about $1 million liquid and a wife who just stole my entire fortune using my own money and my own arrogance against me. So I need you to leave. Now. Amber's eyes filled with tears, but she got dressed, packed her bag, called an Uber. At the door, she turned back. For what it's worth, I hope she destroys you. You deserve it. She left. James sat on the couch, papers scattered around him, and laughed. Bitter, broken, disbelieving laughter. His wife had just executed the perfect heist. $271 million vanished in a single night, and she'd done it legally. or legally enough that proving otherwise would take years and expose his own crimes. The money was in a trust for his son. His son. He couldn't contest it without admitting he'd been hiding assets. Couldn't report Caroline without admitting biometric fraud. He couldn't do anything except watch his empire crumble. She'd thought of everything. He called his lawyer. Find her, he said. I don't care what it costs. Find Caroline and make her pay. Steinberg's sigh was heavy. James, she filed legally. The separation is valid. The trust is structured perfectly. And if you try to prove fraud, you'll have to admit you were hiding money in the Caymans, which opens you to IRS investigation, possible tax evasion charges, and SEC scrutiny of your fund. So I just accept this? She takes everything? Not everything. You still have your fund equity. About 35 million once it vests. You'll rebuild. From 400 million to 35 in one night. She's good, James, better than good. Wherever she learned this, she was FBI, financial crimes. She investigated people like me for 12 years. Well, then she knew exactly how to gut you, and she did. James hung up, looked around the beach house. His sanctuary, his escape. It all felt like a prison now. He opened his laptop, searched. Caroline Morrison. Nothing recent. Her social media accounts were deleted. Her phone went straight to voicemail. It was like she'd evaporated. He tried Sarah Mitchell, Portugal. Nothing. She was gone. Truly, completely gone. And she'd taken everything with her. James Morrison sat in his beach house with his mistress fled and his wife vanished and his fortune stolen, and realized for the first time in his life what it felt like to lose. Not just money, everything. 6 months later, the cafe in Lagos, Portugal, had become Caroline's favorite spot. She came here 3 times a week, always mid-morning when the tourist crowds thinned and the locals settled into their routines. She'd order a galao and a pastel de nata, sit at the corner table overlooking the Atlantic, and watch her son sleep in his stroller. Henry was 3 months old now. Perfect. Healthy. He had James's blue eyes and her dark hair. When he smiled, which he did often, Caroline felt her heart might burst from the sheer weight of love. She'd never known love like this existed. This fierce, protective, all-consuming thing that made her previous life seem like a pale shadow. Disculpe, este lugar está ocupado? A voice spoke in Portuguese. Excuse me, is this seat taken? Caroline looked up, about to say yes. The seat was taken when she recognized the face behind the sunglasses. Riley. Riley pulled off her sunglasses. Grin. Surprise. Caroline's mouth fell open. What are you doing here? Visiting. Someone wired me $2 million 6 months ago. Figured I'd see what Portugal's about. Riley sat down without waiting for permission. Flagged the waiter. Café, por favor. Her Portuguese was terrible, but the waiter understood. Riley turned back to Caroline, studying her with professional assessment. You look good, different. The dark hair suits you. I'm a different person now. Sarah Mitchell, right? That's what your passport says. How did you find me? Please, I'm a PI. Finding people is literally my job. You left breadcrumbs, small ones, but they're there. The apartment lease in Lagos, the pediatrician registration, the cafe you visit 3 times a week at the same time. Riley leaned forward. Don't worry. If I can find you, it means I can tell you how not to be found. Carolyn felt a spike of fear. James is too busy trying not to drown. His fund collapsed. Investors pulled out when the separation news hit. SEC launched an investigation into his offshore accounts. He's broke, Carolyn, living in a studio apartment on the Upper East Side. Amber left him the day after you did. She had the baby, a girl. She's suing him for child support he can't pay. Caroline absorbed this information. She'd wondered late at night what happened to James, whether he'd rebuilt, whether he'd moved on, whether he ever thought about her. Good, she said quietly. Is it? Riley studied her. You destroyed him, completely. Does that feel like justice? I don't know what it feels like. Carolyn looked at Henry, still sleeping peacefully. Sometimes I think I'm a hero. Sometimes I think I'm a monster. Most of the time I think I'm just a woman who did what she had to do. You protected your child. That's not monstrous, isn't it? I stole $271 million. I committed fraud. I faked biometric data. I fled the country. I'm a criminal, Riley. You're a survivor. Is there a difference? Riley was quiet for a moment. The waiter brought her coffee. She sipped it, made a face. This is terrible. How do you drink this? Despite herself, Caroline laughed. You get used to it. I got used to getting shot at in Baltimore. Doesn't mean I enjoyed it. Riley set down her cup. Look, I didn't come here to judge you. I came because you're my friend. Because 4 years ago you abandoned me, and 6 months ago you came back. And I want to make sure you're okay. I'm okay most days. And the other days? Carolyn looked out at the ocean. The waves rolled in, eternal and indifferent. The other days I wake up from dreams where I'm back in New York. Back in that marriage. Back in the lie, and I wonder if I made the right choice. Did you? I don't know. How do you measure? My son is safe. I'm free. James is destroyed. But I'll never know if there was another way. A better way. A way that didn't require me to become the thing I spent 12 years hunting. Henry stirred, made small noises. Caroline reached him down, lifted him from the stroller. He blinked up at her with those blue eyes, and her heart clenched. He'll never know his father, she said. Is that a bad thing? I took that choice from him. Maybe someday he'll hate me for it. Or maybe someday he'll understand you saved him from a man who would have taught him to be a liar. Riley reached over, touched Henry's tiny hand. Hi there, little man. I'm your Aunt Riley. Your mom and I used to catch bad guys together. Used to? Caroline echoed. Yeah, well, I sold the agency. Nothing keeping me in New York anymore. Riley, before you argue, I've already signed a lease. 2 blocks from here. Figured Portugal could use a good PI. And you could use a friend. Carolyn felt tears welling. You don't have to do that. I know, I want to. You gave me $2 million, Caroline. That's fuck you money. That's start over money. And I'm choosing to start over here. With you. With Henry. Building something new. They sat in silence watching the ocean. Tourists walked past, cameras clicking. Locals chatted at neighboring tables. Life continued, indifferent and beautiful. How long are you staying? Carolyn finally asked. As long as you'll have me, and I've got $2 million, a friend who needs his backup, and a godson who needs someone to teach him how to spot a liar from 50 yards. You're insane. We both are. That's why we work. Maybe that was true. Maybe they were both damaged, both running from ghosts, both trying to build something real from the ashes of their old lives, but they were doing it together. And maybe that was enough. 3 years later, Caroline stood in a Portuguese elementary school watching Henry play with other children. He was 5 now, fluent in both English and Portuguese, completely unaware that his mother was a fugitive and his father was a broken man living in New York. To Henry, this was normal, the only life he'd ever known. Mama and Aunt Riley, the beach house with the blue shutters, the cafe where everyone knew his name, the simple, sun-soaked existence of a child who'd never known wealth or privilege or lies. Mama, Henry called out, waving. Hola, look! He'd built something with blocks, a tower, precarious and proud. Caroline waved back, smiled. Riley stood beside her, arms crossed, watching. He's a good kid, Riley said. Yeah, he is. You did that. You gave him this. Caroline wasn't sure she believed that, but she wanted to. That night, after Henry was asleep, Caroline did something she'd promised herself she wouldn't do. She opened her laptop, typed in James Morrison. The first result was an article from Forbes, The Fall of Morrison Capital, a cautionary tale. She clicked. The article detailed James's collapse, the SEC investigation, the investor lawsuits, the bankruptcy filing. His hedge fund had imploded spectacularly. He'd gone from Wall Street golden boy to cautionary tale in under 3 years. There was a photo of him leaving court. He looked old, gray, defeated, nothing like the confident man who'd kissed his mistress while his pregnant wife waited at home. Carolyn felt something twist in her chest, not quite guilt, not quite satisfaction, something more complicated. She'd destroyed him. Yes, he deserved it, but she'd still done it. She'd taken $271 million and vanished, leaving him to face the consequences alone. Was that justice? Or was it just revenge? She closed the laptop. In the next room, Henry slept peacefully, innocent, untouched by the war his parents had fought. He'd grow up never knowing his father, never knowing the fortune that should have been his inheritance, never knowing his mother was a criminal. Was that better? Carolyn honestly didn't know. What she did know, she'd made a choice. An impossible choice under impossible circumstances. And she'd live with that choice for the rest of her life. The uncertainty, the doubt, the knowledge that she'd crossed a line she could never uncross. That was the price of freedom, 8 years after the heist. Henry was 8 now, old enough to ask questions. Mama, why don't I have a daddy? They were on the beach building sandcastles. Riley was there too, helping with the moat. Carolyn had prepared for this question, had rehearsed it in her mind 1,000 times. Your daddy lives far away, she said carefully. We loved each other once, but sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, so we live here and he lives there. Does he know about me? Yes. Does he love me? Carolyn looked at her son. James's eyes, James's stubborn chin, but her heart, her soul. I don't know, baby, but I love you. And Aunt Riley loves you, and that's enough. Henry thought about this, then nodded. Okay. He went back to building his castle. Just like that. Children were resilient in ways adults forgot how to be. That evening, after Henry was asleep, Caroline sat on her balcony with Riley. They'd been doing this for years now, sitting together, watching the ocean, not needing to fill the silence with words. Do you ever regret it? Riley finally asked. Every day. And I'd do it again, exactly the same, because the alternative was staying, letting James control me, letting him build his empire while I became smaller and smaller until I disappeared completely. You chose yourself. I chose my son. Same thing. Maybe it was. Caroline still wasn't sure. What she knew, she'd survived, she'd escaped, she'd built a new life from the ashes of her old one. She'd paid for it with her identity, her country, her peace of mind. But she'd paid willingly. That was the price of freedom. And some days it felt worth it. Some days